Let's have a look at some of the sounds we can produce on this instrument, particularly for the piece Ich ruf zu dir, Herr Jesu Christ by Johann Sebastian Bach. Maybe we'll start with the reed stops, because on this organ we've got some quite soft reeds. We've got a corno di bassetto on the positive. That's quite a nice reed. We usually combine a reed with an 8-foot just to round it off a bit. This is the corno di bassetto by itself. Let's try it with the clarinet flute, which is designed to be played in combination with that stop as a solo. Gives it a little bit more of a rounder tone. We also have a soft reed on the swell division. We have an oboe. We can also combine that with a soft 8-foot, in this case the lieblich gedacht, and it sounds like this. A little bit more distant sounding, maybe a little bit more expressive. If we want to accompany that successfully, we either accompany on the grate, as that division hasn't been used yet. We've got one soft 8-foot on the grate, the stop diapason. And that stop will more than likely work with the swell oboe also. Possibly the accompaniment is actually a little bit loud there. So if the grate stops are too loud for a swell solo, we have to look on the positive division. Let's try with the clarinet flute, the softest 8-foot on the positive. I think that's much more subtle. It lets the solo sing out a little bit more. So to the pedal registration, we've got two 16-foot stops on this organ. In fact, we've got 3. We've got 2 flue stops, a bourdon and an open diapason, and then we've got a reed trombone, which of course is very loud. So we'll try with the bourdon 16-foot, which is a soft 16-foot pedal. As this is a soft registration, we need a soft 8-foot. We have 3 8-foots on the pedal here. We've got a principal, which is quite powerful. We've got a bass flute, quite soft, and somewhere in between the violoncello. Let's take the bass flute as the softest 8-foot in the pedal and see how that works. Swell, grate, and pedal. Same with the grate, positive solo and pedal. So if we go on to look at other sound possibilities, because we really have many on this organ, let's maybe look at the 8-foot flue stops. We have an open diapason on the grate. Really quite loud, possibly a little bit too much for this quite intimate piece. So let's look elsewhere. We've got an open diapason on the swell. Much softer. That might be a possibility. So let's find an accompaniment for that. Again, it's going to need to be a soft one. So we've found already the clarinet flute on the positive, the stop diapason on the grate. Possibly one of those will work. Let's try both. Again with the bourdon 16-foot and the bass 8-foot in the pedal. Or with the positive 8-foot flute. So that's really quite an intimate registration. We could look a little bit further because I think we can find something that sings a little bit more. We've tried our 8-foot diapasons. Let's maybe try the 4-foot principal stops. We could try them down an octave. So on the positive, we have a Gemshorn 4-foot, down the octave, we could maybe add a little bit more character to that by combining it with a 4-foot flute. Or we could go a step further and add the tremulant. That gives it something like a subtle vibrato. Tremulants vary, of course, from instrument to instrument. Some are very pleasant. Some can be a little bit too wobbly, like a very big vibrato. One has to try them out. We have a similar option on the swell. We've got a principal 4-foot. Again, we could add a little bit of character by adding the flauto traverso, like a horizontal flute. We also have a tremulant on the swell. Let's work with that one. So, an accompaniment, I think, is best found in this case also on the positive, the clarinet flute, our softest 8-foot flute, and the bourdon 16-foot and the bass 8-foot flute in the pedal. If we maybe wanted a registration that was more present, maybe something that we would play at the end of a service on an appropriate occasion, we could look for something that was a little bit louder. This piece, of course, can be interpreted in various ways. Ich ruf zu dir, Herr Jesu Christ, is a cry for help. If you look at the German text, it could be quite a loud cry, or it could be quite a soft cry. We could try the sesquialtera. That's commonly used as a solo stop, and we know that this stop was very much favoured by Johann Sebastian Bach. He altered the organ that he was playing in Mühlhausen, and during that organ rebuild, he had a sesquialtera installed on all 3 of the manuals. So from that we can conclude that Bach rather liked this stop. Here we have a sesquialtera on the positive. We combine that with an 8-foot, usually a flute, and also a 4-foot flute. So quite a direct sound, quite a lot of colour, as a sesquialtera has a tierce in it. We need to find a somewhat louder accompaniment for this registration. Let's see what we can find on the grate. As we've got a 4-foot in our solo, we'll be best to use one in the accompaniment as well. On the grate we've got the stop diapason 8-foot, we've got a harmonic flute 4-foot. Let's see how that balances. I think we can hear everything quite well. Of course, the positif is situated quite close to the console, so it sounds very present. It's possible that in the body of the church it's somewhat more restrained. Again, it's a good idea to get somebody else to play an excerpt from the piece you're registering while you go down into the church to listen and see what the balance sounds like. Otherwise, we're likely liable to make mistakes until we get to know the organ really very intimately. Another possibility, if we have our solo on the positif, is to find an accompaniment on the swell. Again, we could do with an 8-foot and a 4-foot stop. We could try the 8-foot open diapason, possibly combined with the 4-foot principle if it's not too loud. So. At the console, that doesn't sound too loud. We also need to have appropriate pedal registration. As everything is a little bit louder, we need a little bit more in the pedal. So if we take the board on 16-foot, we can combine it maybe with the violoncello, which is somewhere between the flute and the principal in volume. Quite possible that that pedal still isn't loud enough. We could try with the principal 8-foot instead of the violoncello. Quite possible that that's now too loud, but really to make an accurate assessment, one would have to listen from the body of the church. Another possibility is to use a recording device to record the registration from somewhere down in the church. That will also give you a good idea of the balance of the registration.